Welcome to my messy kitchen. We're here today to talk about your top 3 survival foods for facing the zombie apocalypse. Oh, no, you didn't. You did not just use the Z word now, did you? We don't use that here because in certain dark corners of the prepper community, it's a dog whistle, a form of psychological manipulation to make people comfortable with killing those who are less prepared. I mean, think about it. The Walking Dead. I don't want to hear that kind of language out of you again, mister. Anyway, this is Hedgery. Hey, welcome to the show, and by the way, if your kitchen is like not as messy as mine, there's no reason to feel bad. I mean, I know all the cool kids on Instagram, but seriously, this is not about keeping up with the Joneses. Your kitchen should be your kitchen. Don't let anybody out there tell you that you need to have a kitchen as messy as mine. But speaking of kitchens, I wanted this video to be something that could apply to people who, maybe live in an apartment in the city. And so their kitchen is all they got. They don't have maybe a grill or a fire pit in the backyard and a big, supply of fuel in case the power goes out. So I wanted this video to really be accessible to a huge percentage of the population who just don't have any options beyond what they can do in their apartment. So that's where we're going to start off first, is storage space. I mean, this is what they call a pantry. These little cabinets here. That's it. And for millions of Americans, they have even less storage space. So I wanted to come up with these, 3 survival foods based on minimizing the amount of storage space that you have to give over to those foods. And speaking of limitations, for millions of Americans, this is the only way they can cook. If they don't have electricity, they're not boiling anything. They might be able to warm a few things up a little bit with some candles or maybe some sterno, but anything that requires a huge amount of cooking is right out. And speaking of limitations, the chill chest, right out. We lose power. Well, everything in here is going to go bad sooner or later. It might last a few days. If your freezer's really full, it might stay cold longer, as long as you don't, keep opening the doors and stuff. If you can supplement what you have with cold goods, that's great. But for our planning purposes, anything that requires refrigeration, right out. Okay, so now that we've talked about limitations, what exactly are we preparing for? I mean, it's not exactly a end of the world event. It's more likely to be like a natural disaster. So a storm knocks out power, something like that. But if you're still in your home and not at a disaster shelter, in most parts of the country, you will get power back within a few days to a week. So that's one scenario. The other one that we should bear in mind is the possibility of another supply chain disruption. I mean, we all remember the great toilet paper panic of 2020. That sort of thing is probably going to happen in the future. So having a little bit of food on hand that doesn't require refrigeration, doesn't take up a lot of space, and isn't terribly expensive, that's just smart planning. So the first food stuff that we're looking at is fatty protein. And that's where a lot of your calories are going to come from. And fat, protein, and salt help you to feel full. Your body recognizes them faster than carbohydrates. So you're a lot more likely to feel satisfied, and that'll help bring your stress level down. So what do I mean by fatty proteins? Well, for example, the salted processed American meat and peanut butter both have the same amount of fat and protein. They have a little bit different salt and sugar content, but in terms of planning out your menu, they're pretty much identical for our purposes. Now, the nice thing about having processed meat and peanut butter is you have a little bit of variety, so you could have both on hand. And most people have peanut butter or something like that in their pantry anyway, so it's not like you're doing anything weird having that on hand, just have a little extra. But it means that you can also make like desserts with it because it's sweeter. Whereas the, mystery meat in a can, that is going to tell you, hey, I've had something savory. And if pork isn't your thing, there are beefy versions of this, like the sort of British style canned corned beef. It's a lower in fat and a little higher in protein, so your calories are going to be different than with the pork stuff. But those are an option. If you are looking for a vegan alternative, I haven't found a vegan Spam that has the same kind of protein-fat ratio. But if you look for 16 grams of fat, 7 grams of protein per serving, you're in that ballpark. But the other advantage of wacky meat and peanut butter, they're both extremely cheap. Each of these containers holds over 1,000 calories, and they cost about like $2.50 a piece. The canned corned beef is more like $3.50. Some of the alternatives are going to be much more expensive. Canned fish usually has less calories, much lower fat, unless it's packed in oil. They don't give you the calories for the oil it's packed in, but there are certainly a lot of calories in it. The thing is that generally one serving of those is one can, and they're pretty expensive. So per serving, you're talking, anywhere from say $1 to $4 or $5 if you get the really fancy stuff for one serving, whereas this is 6 servings, this is 14. So think about that when you're planning your fatty protein. Our second category is your bulk calories, usually from carbohydrates. Now, if you think about it, most of the options that we would normally use, rice, fresh potatoes boiled up or something like that, require a lot of fuel, a lot of heat that we don't have in a survival situation. Now, you could use something like one of these, retort pouch rices, but this is like $1.50, $2 a package. That's a lot of money to spend for the number of calories in that package. And I've looked at a lot of possibilities, but most of them spoil too fast or they're really expensive, with one exception. Instant mashed potatoes. You can make these with cold water. It's bland, it's not the most appetizing thing, but you can make it with cold water. If you have other stuff, great. But they're also flexible. You can make gravies with them. It's a little grainy, but it's a change of pace in a survival situation that'll help you, feel like things aren't getting too monotonous. You can make them thicker, make them real stiff, and make little pancakes out of them. And if you can generate enough heat to maybe, fry up your Spam a little, you can also fry the little pancakes, get them a little toasty on the edges, then maybe put some peanut butter on them and have them as dessert. So they're very flexible, these instant mashed potatoes. You don't need hot water to reconstitute them, although it's preferable if you can get it. And they're cheap. It's like $2.50 for one of these packages, and there's 2,800 calories in one of these packages. That is massive flexibility, minimum cost, not a lot of storage space, and those things that I mentioned that you can do in your normal cooking too. You can also use them, maybe you made some mashed potatoes and they're a little runny. throw a little bit of the potato flakes in there, thicken them up. Made a gravy and it's a little too thin, throw a little bit of the potato flakes in there. You can use them up and keep them rotating through, even if it's not a normal part of your diet. They should be something that you have on hand for emergencies. So our last item on the list, it's actually kind of a grab bag, and that is going to be canned fruit and vegetables. And it's whatever you like. The point here is for you to have a little more variety in your diet and get some micronutrients, vitamins, minerals, that kind of thing. Breaking the monotony and getting those micronutrients will help your body to calm down so it's not compounding your stress level. I mean, you're in a survival situation, it's stressful. You need to have enough calories in your diet, and you need some variety and some micronutrients, which is why you should definitely have canned fruits and vegetables in your pantry. And when I talk about variety, I mean, think about it. Wouldn't those little peanut butter covered potato pancake things be that much more of a dessert if you had some pears or pineapple or something to throw on top of it? Or if you were making a stew with your canned meat and some thinned out mashed potatoes, wouldn't it feel more like a stew if you had some mixed vegetables to throw into it? So think in terms of what's going to round out your diet and what's going to just bring you a little bit of joy in a scary situation. And that's what you want to have on hand for canned fruits and vegetables. And there you go. My top 3 survival foods that you should have in your pantry in case of a power outage or a minor supply chain disruption. Before we go, though, I do want to ask you a question with no single right answer. Here in the West, we have all sorts of variety of stuff that we can put in our pantries. So here's my question. If you could only have one thing to supplement the 3 items I listed, what would it be and why? Think it over and share with us down in the comments. And while you're there, why not like, share, and subscribe the video? I'll see you next time. But until then, remember, you are Hedgery.